really.
Pop culture insight, and we play into that. So it's not just your typical celeb endorsement campaign. We see hundreds of those every single day, and what we try and do at Bolded and OBB is really cut through that, create work that earns your attention. We're pushing against the traditional media play of like spend and interrupt people, and instead create things in culture people seek out.
Pull people in.
Exactly.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Ad Podcast. We've got James Rowe here, who is the president of OBB Bolded. Shortly off news of 12 shortlist potentials for the Lions this week. How are things going so far?
Yeah, good. And actually, breaking news is we've just heard we've got a couple more. So it's 14 for Sarah V, New Face of Legs with Kevin Durant.
That's amazing.
2 for Dick's Sporting Goods with I Show Speed. So yeah, it's been a good start to the week. You know, you always like to go into these things and have a strong start, get some runs on the board, and so far so good.
That's awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the work, or maybe some of the stand-up projects that you guys have in the running?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things in. So as I said, New Face of Legs with Sarah V and Kevin Durant, that was all about getting African-American males to use body moisturizer, which starts as a very straight brief, and then all of a sudden you realize there's been a meme online of Kevin Durant with ashy ankles in the NBA for 5 years now, and we just really lent into that. So that was a really fun one. As I mentioned, Dick's I Show Speed, we did a show called Speed Goes Pro. That's getting some good shortlists in entertainment. And then 2 other ones, our Super Bowl spot for Kendall Jenner and Fanatic Sportsbook.
Let's go.
Which was a good fun one again.
Yeah.
And then our Kimsmas campaign for Skims, which was a live 45-minute shopping experience on TikTok with Kim Kardashian. So lots of different variations there, lots of range, but so far so good.
Yeah, definitely pick up a theme of working with the biggest A-list talent in the business, the Kardashian family, Kevin Durant. What is it that you guys really think about with the insight and which picking a big A-list star like that to work with?
I think for us it all comes down to authenticity. We don't want this to be slapping talent in there for any old reason. So with Kevin and Sarah V, only Kevin could anchor that campaign because of the meme, because of the ashy ankles, and so it became a story about this guy who happens to be Kevin Durant. Same with Kendall Jenner and
they had
Super Bowl.
They had an actual use case that made sense for the brand. Exactly. They just happened to be a celebrity.
Exactly. Same with Kendall Jenner and Fanatic Sportsbook. That was playing into the Kardashian curse, this idea that when a Kardashian dates a sports star, they kind of plummet. And so again, all of these stories are really centered around who they are as a person and the stories.
And kind of an insight from pop culture and social first. Really.
Pop culture insight, and we play into that. So it's not just your typical celeb endorsement campaign. We see hundreds of those every single day, and what we try and do at Bolded and OBB is really cut through that, create work that earns your attention. We're pushing against the traditional media play of spend and interrupt people, and instead create things in culture people seek out.
Pull people in.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you guys do anything interesting on the insights piece? How do you identify? Is it just smart strategists looking at social and kind of having their finger on the pulse, or is AI and technology helping surface those insights?
Yeah, I think we use technology in all sorts of ways. I would say our best insights are still, they come from a human, or they're identified by a human, even if we're using tools and technology to scour.
To surface it.
To surface it.
Make sure you're looking at every potential option.
But I think when you're trying to connect with humans and human beings, the best way to do that is put it through the lens of a human. So our strategists, our creatives are very clued into pop culture and those type of insights, often through social and platforms like Reddit, and we're by the Reddit activation here. But it's really a human endeavor.
I love it. So what else is on the menu this week? Are you doing any thought leadership yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually on our way to Sport Beach to do a panel on fandom and engagement. I think there's lots of talk here this week about fandom, fan engagement, and so I'll be speaking at CMO Roundtable there. And then throughout the week, we've got podcasts, we've got talks at Sport Beach and Wall Street Journal House. So yeah, it's going to be a jam-packed week, but one we're looking forward to.
Nice. Any insights or themes you're going to explore in your talk you want to tease?
Yeah, I think, for us again, I think the piece around fan engagement is understanding how powerful those fan communities can be. So not just thinking about a fan as an individual, which sometimes people do, but actually the communities they're in. I mean, think about the World Cup right now, and seeing those nations show up in various spots around America. You can see how powerful fandom and community is. You've probably seen the Tartan Army taking over Boston, and the Japanese fans picking up their own trash after each game. I think there's real power in understanding not just the individual fan, but the community of fans.
The culture, yeah.
Exactly.
I was talking to a guy last night who was telling me about when he went to France for the Olympics, and they literally had their activation at an Irish pub next to Moulin Rouge in Paris, and the Prime Minister of Ireland was in the pub, and people who weren't Irish didn't even know. It's like that level of connection, like just a guy walking around who's a head of state with no security detail or anything like that, just a fan there for the moment.
Exactly. I think that speaks to the power of fandom, right? It's a real leveler. You can look at all the demographic data you could ever wish for, but ultimately a sports team, a nation can unite these very disparate people in a really engaged and passionate way. I don't think there's a more passionate and empowered and engaged person than a sports fan. And so exploring that this week with our clients and with our partners, and I think it's true of the work that we've got, and the work that's being successful is tapping into those fan communities as much as we can.
You're going over to Sport Beach. LinkedIn is doing a huge activation around bringing athletes into their platform as creators. What do you think it is about athletes that people really are leaning in, and that's becoming such a, it's always been a part of endorsements, but it feels like working with athletes has never been more popular. Is it because sports are going global, things like World Cup and LA 28 coming up, sports betting, you guys work with a sports betting client, people are more engaged than ever because the frictionlessness of sports betting, and you can bet on these micro moments. So when you have skin in the game, you're paying attention more, you have a little bit more, you have something on the line, so to speak, so it's a different level of engagement. Are you guys seeing that showing up in the data?
Yeah, I think that word engagement is critical here. I think given the proliferation of social, both at a league level, a team level, and a personal level, I think we've developed these parasocial relationships with athletes. We're seeing them, yes, on the biggest stage, but we're also seeing in the locker room, we're seeing them at home. We've developed these 360 relationships with these athletes, and I think that's why it's so powerful, because at a macro sense, yes, they're leading your favorite sports team out, but at a personal micro level, we're seeing their everyday lives, and I think people are fascinated by that. And so I think they offer a real wide range of engagement opportunities for brands and for connection with other fans. And so I think that's why, we walk up and down the Croisette this week, we're going to see athletes of all different shapes and sizes, from Olympians to NBA stars to quarterbacks, all here because of that kind of power of that relationship.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the idea of doing content that is not content that you're interrupting people to watch. They're trying to watch content, and you're basically roadblocking their experience, but you're creating content that's pulling users in. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Dick's work and the idea of long-form branded storytelling versus creating ads?
Yeah, and I think that's where we were born, right? OBB is an entertainment company at its heart, it's a production company at its heart. And so I think everything we do, we kind of look through an entertainment lens. How are we going to entertain people and, to your point, draw people in so they feel really engaged and they're not clicking away? And specifically with Dick's, the brief there was, really engaging that young Gen Z audience. They're an incredible brand. They, as a youth brand, they have a ton of youth athletes across America, but you're always trying to re-recruit. And so the brief there was, how do we engage that younger Gen Z audience? And rather than just creating a standard campaign using traditional media, which we know Gen Z have less engagement with traditional media plans, we looked at a different perspective. We immediately thought that speed would be a good fit for the brand and for the brief. Huge, I think he's now over 150 million subscribers.
Wow.
So thinking about speed, not just as a personality and who he is and what the message that he can convey, but also speed as a media channel and a platform. That engaged 150 million subscribers we have access to when we're working with Speed. So we co-created Speed Goes Pro with Speed and took it to Emily Silver, the CMO of Dick's. And to her credit, she immediately saw how powerful that could be. I think supported by her leadership team, who all went home to their kids and went, have you heard of how I show Speed? And they all went absolutely nuts. And so I think, we co-create that with Speed. We launched season 1 last year with a range of athletes, Tom Brady, Kevin Durant, some Suni Lee, and we're currently shooting season 2. So I think, we saw great success with that, deep engagement. It was hosted on Speed's YouTube channel, so this wasn't, we didn't pay to put the show anywhere.
Build it to put on the Dick's channel.
Yeah, this wasn't a traditional streamer. So we saw incredible engagement. Each episode has over 10 million organic views, and over 80% of that is viewing through that full 25 minutes. So just think about that amount of content and that engagement that you're getting with that lucrative Gen Z audience. It's pretty impressive.
Are you ever thinking about, using a YouTuber and a YouTuber's channel as a way to kind of seed content out there that might make its way to Netflix someday or Hulu or on a traditional long-form streamer?
Absolutely. We've seen a couple of our formats recently that started on YouTube have garnered interest from the traditional streamers. I think particularly now as you look at some of the bigger platforms like Netflix investing in vertical video on their platform, we're going to see that more and more. And certainly a couple of our shows, can't speak about them right now, are flipping from a organic YouTube model to a premium subscriber model.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on all the success this
Thanks,
week.
Dylan.
I'll be keeping you in mind as you go down for the final stretch. If folks at home want to follow along or connect with you, where would you like to send them?
You can find us on our Instagram, OBB, at OBB, or my personal one, at JS Rowe, and all the usual socials.
All right. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Dylan.
Cheers.
YouTube, finding the right audience to build a media plan requires hours of research. And optimizing campaigns is time-consuming and a bit of a guessing game. That's why we built technology to do it for you. Strike Social.